We lost connection with Chloe. I'm so sorry, everyone. Hopefully, we'll reconnect here and see what I don't know what happened. It just dropped out for some reason. So I don't know what happened there. Hopefully, everyone joins back in. I don't know what happened. That was so weird. Let's see what we got going on here. Chloe, if you join, hopefully you'll join back in here. Oh my goodness, there. Okay, looks like she joined back in. I don't know what happened. Okay, Chloe's back. Yeah, I just put the request in for her to join. Oh my god, there.
I don't know what happened. I'm
I don't
sorry.
know what happened either. My screen just went black.
I was just talking and then I realized I was talking to myself. So anyway, I think it might have been on my end because
Oh,
as I was saying, I
well,
live
let's.
at the moment in a very remote part of Australia and we're having a big storm at the moment. So I
Oh,
think that was me. Sorry.
okay, that's all right. That's okay. So let's start over again real quick. You're in
Sure.
Australia. I'm in San Diego. Please introduce yourself. I know it's going to be redundant, but since we're basically starting over again, we had like 40 some people in here and they all dropped out. So tell
Sure.
everyone, introduce yourself again, please.
No problem at all. So, as I was saying, my name is Chloe, and I am a veterinarian from Australia. I'm a wildlife vet. I've been really fortunate to work all over the world, and I just love my job. It's a dream come true. And my passion in life is conservation and also spreading the message about why conservation is something we should all care about. I think this probably stemmed from spending part of my childhood on Lord Howe Island, which is a spectacular little tiny speck in the Pacific Ocean, just about an hour off Sydney. And I think even David Attenborough once called it the most spectacular place on earth, or one of the most amazing places on earth. So I really, from a young age, couldn't imagine a career doing anything else other than trying to protect the natural world, all of the species that inhabit it, and share with others why it's something that we should all be passionate about and care about. So yeah, I'm just living my dream, really. I feel so fortunate. I have to pinch myself every day. The only downside is that I get actually quite nervous talking about it, so it's a real hurdle. And I'm working on it. So yeah, but I love meeting people and sharing why I'm so passionate about this. So I'm really honored that you've had me on today.
Oh my goodness, no, absolutely my pleasure. I'm so glad it worked out for timing. And this is just so everyone knows, this is the picture you sent me. This is the island you grew up on, correct?
Yes, yep, that's Lord Howe Island. I lived in the
Man,
middle, and so you've got the two mountains at the end of the island, and you have this lagoon, this beautiful lagoon in the middle. And I remember on my lunch break from school, we used to race each other out to the end of the lagoon and back, just swimming, and there'd be
wow.
turtles and reef sharks and all the amazing stuff. And I never really bothered about school. I just sort of spent my time outside and yeah, I'm very, very grateful for it. So I had a very special upbringing in a lot of ways. Lord Howe isn't the only place I lived, but it was one of the most memorable.
I can imagine. I can see why.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously this picture doesn't show all of it very well. It's a small picture, but roughly what was the population of where you lived?
300.
Oh, wow.
It's tiny. Yeah, you can walk around the island in half a day. It's not very big at all, but it's spectacular. It's so stunning, and
Wow.
it's very important from an ecological standpoint. They
Right.
found a couple of species that they thought were extinct from the 1920s, and they rediscovered it. It's a crazy-looking alien stick insect, which is apparently very important. So
Yeah.
that was very exciting when that was discovered, and yeah, it's a paradise. So yeah, I
Beautiful.
would like to do what I can to protect these last remaining paradises and all the species that inhabit it.
Understandable. Understandable. And that, yeah, the Lord Howe stick insect is one that I'm familiar with. Our curator of entomology was a part of trying to help create a secondary population here in the United States, and they've been having some challenges
Amazing.
with it. Yeah, but it's really amazing. I mean, I remember when she first told me that they had rediscovered them or found them, the population was still existing after thinking they were extinct, and just the whole excitement around that and the energy put into what can we do to create a safe population is just
Yeah.
fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I was so lucky. I think I was 12, living on the island when they rediscovered it. So it was my first sort of moment of appreciating the importance of conservation and how special this thing was. And they're taking it over to the mainland and doing breeding programs. And I was just captivated by it all. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. So with normally you were saying as a wildlife vet, you travel all over the world. Excuse me. Anybody who is peeked at your Instagram and seen you have been all over the world for certain. But one of the things I like to ask people, and honestly, this whole process of why we're even talking started because the date, though, probably 4 days before Endangered Species Day, I was like, hey, I'm going to ask some people who do science communication like I do to come on a live and talk about just their most memorable animal experience. Not give our usual spiel or talk that we tend to give as educators, but just a personal story. And of course, so there's a whole backstory to why we're talking now. But the other part that I like to ask people about, because it's something everybody's dealing with to some degree or another, is how has the pandemic impacted your work, or has it? Has your work kind of stayed the same for what you can do at this time of year? Or what's going on for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's impacted everyone all over the world in different ways. It probably has impacted me quite significantly. I mean, I was on Kangaroo Island anyway earlier this year because in response to the bushfires, so I was working on the emergency team out dealing with burnt animals, and it was really horrific. And then after that, the plan was to go overseas and visit some of our partner projects. So I'm really fortunate to work with a company called Loop Abroad, and it's sort of like the educational arm of what I do. I get to meet students who are interested in conservation and veterinary medicine, and we go around the world and show them different conservation programs and teach them a little bit about that. So I was supposed to be overseas at the moment, but understandably that hasn't been able to happen. So instead I'm still on Kangaroo Island, but there's plenty to do here, and it's actually kind of nice to not be traveling for a little bit because I've sort of been on the road for the past 5 years nonstop. So to stay still in one spot, I'm really appreciating. I'm also just finished my first book, which is really exciting. So I guess
congratulations.
Thank you. That was a no excuses, gotta finish it kind of time. And
you're not traveling, so.
So I did that, and I'm trying to make the most of it. And a lot of my work I can do online aside from the veterinary stuff. So I'm just trying to embrace it and appreciate the fact that I haven't been impacted as severely as a lot of people. So yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, but that's life, and I'm safe and healthy, and that's all you can really ask for. But yeah, the year is certainly looking a little different. And I thought that we'd reached the low point, at least here in Australia, in February or March when we were dealing with all of that, but it turns out we hadn't. So yeah, this year is full of surprises, and it's certainly one for the history books, but probably one we'll all be happy to see the back of.
Yeah, right. You and everybody else. Yeah. So I have to ask, because you mentioned it, you said you just finished writing the book. Obviously it's going to take time to go through editing and publishing and all that, but is there like a estimate of when we can look for that out in the market?
I think the due date is March 3rd. So, and my publisher is on my back if he's watching this. He's a little bit sort of, yeah, so it'll be out in stores on March 3rd. And I'm really excited, and I'll be donating profits to conservation programs that I'm really passionate about. I just tried to think of what is something that I can do, and people often ask me about my work and my story and everything, so I thought I would just write about some of the amazing things I've been involved in, and how we can all get involved and why we should all care about it. So hopefully it goes okay, but who knows.
Well, I'm sure it will. I mean, just all the experiences you've had and the things you've done, what you've seen, bringing that into a book, I think is going to be very powerful and important. So I look forward to seeing that book out.
Oh.
I'll be doing an early order when it becomes available to order online. So,
goodness. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I know you've got another thing coming up in not too long here from now. So I don't want to. We could probably chit chat forever because I'm just fascinated by your work. But let's just get to. I know you got a couple stories you want to share. The question of this whole process is the most memorable animal encounter. With all of the ones you've had, it's understandable it would be hard to pick one, but which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, so it was near impossible to pick one. I was thinking about it for a little while, and they're all important and memorable for different reasons. I mean, I've been chased by a rhino and thought I was definitely going to be turned into a fine pulp, and I've found myself out in the savannah catching zebras, accidentally dressed as a zebra myself, and I don't know how that happened. That was a series of very unfortunate events I can share with you another time. Obviously the koalas here on Kangaroo Island really impacted me. So during the bushfire season, that was a really memorable time in my career and quite a horrific time.
Photos you sent?
Yeah, that would be good. So it was pretty
Nice.
horrific seeing the injuries that they suffered, but the highlight was the eventual rehabilitation and releasing them back into the wild. So that was really special, but quite a confronting time.
There's one here in a basket.
Oh yeah, that's.
You can see you got the wrapped up front limb there.
Yeah, he was a big boy. I called him Mr. Sparkles because we had this really sparkly wrap that we wrapped him in, so he looked really quite glam, and I thought he was cool. So yeah, he was a big one, and I just love them sitting in their laundry baskets. I mean, they're quite placid most of the time, and that was a really amazing experience and one which I feel very fortunate to be a part of. But my most memorable animal encounter, there's just so many. So catching giraffe is another story I'd love to tell you one day.
Well, there's this one you sent me. I mean,
yeah, that's giraffe capture. So that was in Zimbabwe. They're captured to be translocated to an area that wasn't as drought stricken.
Was this with the Giraffe Conservation Fund?
No, it wasn't. It was on a private reserve,
okay.
Malongwe in the south of Zimbabwe, and that in itself is a very spectacular process. So that was crazy to be involved with, and I just thought that was amazing. So giraffe capture is one of the things I enjoy the most, but in terms of the most memorable case I've come across, that was actually a lion called Simba. And he had a really special story, quite a harrowing story to start with. So he was born in France. At 8 months old, he was purchased by an animal trainer, and he was actually kept for several years in a tiny little caravan called a beast wagon, and he had pretty much no access to outside. He had no access to any other lions. He was abused and mistreated, and it was really horrific. And his case became known by authorities in France and Belgium and by the Born Free organization based in the UK. So they rescued him from this animal trainer from these horrible circumstances, and they put him in a temporary home in Belgium while they put together a plan that took about a year to coordinate for his essentially repatriation home to Africa, where he could live out his days. So at about 9 years old in 2014, a whole lot of people came together and organized him to be flown back to Malawi, so back to his home, and he could live out the rest of his life on a 180-hectare wildlife sanctuary, which is located in Lilongwe, so Malawi's capital, at the Lilongwe Wildlife Trust, which is an amazing place. So I found myself there in 2015 working with Simba, and there was a really beautiful story. There was another mistreated lion. She had come from a facility in Romania where she'd had cigarette butts put out on her, and she's missing an eye, and she'd been abused all her life. So she had been rescued 5 years before Simba, and Simba was flown to Malawi, and they were introduced, and they had a bit of a scuffle. So a few days they didn't really get along very well, but after that they were pretty much inseparable. So these two really severely mistreated lions were flown home to Africa and were able to live in a peace and quiet of a sanctuary with each other. And I got the opportunity to work with Simba. He suffered from pretty bad osteoarthritis from his years in a small area of captivity, so in a tiny little trailer, and we were managing the arthritis. But the medication available to you in Malawi isn't always that extensive, so you don't have a lot of choices. So I actually went into town one day to search for this particular medication, and I went to the pharmacy, and I had a chat to the pharmacist about what I would be needing, and could I please have some? And he asked, who's it for? And I said, oh, it's for a lion. And he's like, he couldn't quite believe me. I was like, yeah, for a lion. His name is Simba. He has very bad arthritis. I told him a bit of his backstory, and he was just totally captivated with Simba's story. And it was amazing. So he ended up giving me the medication.
Is that this image here?
Yeah, there we are.
Oh, that's great.
So he ended up, that's my friend Brad there on the right. He ended up giving us the medication. I'm pretty sure he still didn't quite believe us, but we went back and we anesthetized Simba and did a complete physical exam on him, which was amazing in itself. I mean, he's a really special animal. He's got this glorious big mane. He's just stunning. He had very bad arthritis, so the drugs were actually able to help him, and we saw an improvement. And then I went back about a week later to the pharmacist and took him these photos to show him. No, it really was this lion called Simba, and he was so amazed. So I said, you know, you're welcome to go and visit him anytime. He's located here, and he's very grateful, and thank you so much for your help. And I think I love that story the most out of all of the stories I could tell, because it really demonstrates on one side the worst of humanity, but on the other side the best of humanity, because of all the people that came together to rescue this lion, to fly him home to Africa, to care for him. It was a humongous effort on the part of many, and listing everyone would take far too long, but the Born Free organization was huge in instrumenting that, and was fortunate enough to meet their president a few years later, Will Travers, in London, and tell him about my experiences with Simba. And yeah, it was just a very, very memorable case. So I feel really lucky to have been there and to be involved with that.
Well, that's great. And I mean, to your point too, it's one of those things where the story is even, I don't know, it's poetic that this is a lion that suffered so much trauma at the hands of humans, but then was also saved, rescued, rehabilitated, and cared for at the hands of humans. And that's one thing that in a lot of my talks I give, is that a lot of our conservation concerns and problems, endangered species, etc., endangered ecosystems, these are human caused problems, and so therefore we should remain hopeful, because there's human solutions available. We cause these problems, we can fix them. So what a great example right there.
Yeah, when we can use our power for good is really, really special. And you can get really caught up in the negative stories, and you see a lot of animals suffering at the hands of humans, but also you can look at all the good that's been done, all the people that essentially donate their entire lives to these causes. And I'm so inspired by everyone that does that, like you, just everyone in this field, I think, is amazing. They're just working towards this really important cause, and I feel very fortunate to be a very small part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're being a bit humble. I think you're a very large part of it, all the work you've done. But but either way, yes. I mean, every little bit anyone does can help. And I know you've got to go in a few minutes, so I don't want to keep you. But I do want to ask one more question. Actually, I like two questions, but this one first. A lot of times in my line of work as a science communicator and conservation communicator to the general public, a question I usually get, some form or another, is either from like a small child or even an adult, that their heart goes out. They hear the stories, they want to help, but they feel too small. I'm just one person living here in a city, or I'm one person, you know, what can I do to make a difference? So what would be your answer? And I've done a lot of these interviews where I ask that question, and so far everyone's had a different answer. So don't feel pressured like you have to have it exactly right, because what makes this answer special is everyone has their own viewpoint on what it is an individual can do that does make a difference. And hearing it from someone like you who does this kind of work, it makes it that much more impactful. So what would your answer be to someone saying, you know, I'm only one person, what can I do?
Yeah, no, I love that question, because I think it's so important for an individual to know how much of an impact they can make, and that this field that we're fortunate to work in isn't reserved for zoologists and conservationists and veterinarians and biologists. It's not just for us. To be a conservationist, you can be anyone from any walk of life. I mean, in conservation, we need business leaders, we need media experts, we need lawyers, we need people willing to educate themselves and just share with their loved ones the stories about why some choices might be better than others, or why we should care about this. So we're all very interconnected with the ecosystem, and it's absolutely should be one of our top priorities, is protecting that, because ultimately its demise will spell our demise. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a particular love of animals or anything, you need to know that it does impact you, and we are a part of this web. And there's so much that you can do on an individual level. I mean, the top one that I think is just to educate yourself, as we're doing here, having a chat, and sharing our stories with other people. And with that, you can become an informed shopper. So you can know where your products were produced. You can be really conscious about your single-use plastics, for example, because that has a huge impact, particularly on our marine life. You can look into sustainable palm oil versus unsustainable, and sort of see how that relates to the orangutans in Borneo. When you're planning your next holiday, you can support ecotourism. I mean, a great example of that, there's plenty domestically, so when you're holidaying at home, but one of my favorite examples is in Rwanda and Uganda with the gorillas. I mean, going to see these gorillas directly supports on the ground programs, and that money goes into the local the local organizations and helps the farmers protect their crops. It helps the rangers protect the gorillas. Because of it, it's one of the most successful programs we've seen. I mean, the gorillas were teetering on the edge. The mountain gorillas were teetering on the edge of extinction not long ago. In the 80s, they thought they wouldn't make it to here, and now the population has actually risen to over 1,000. And a lot of that's directly because of this ecotourism. So next time you're planning your holiday, try and maybe look at what you can do to get involved in grassroots ecotourism efforts. You can engage in volotourism. So pick a great place, and maybe even if you want to get some hands-on experience and learn from these places, there's a lot of amazing places that take volunteers in exchange for a little bit of your work. And it doesn't just need to be veterinarians. I mean, I've listed a lot of amazing places on my website if people are interested. You can, if you wanted to, get involved in politics. I mean, we need change at every level, from the bottom to the top, and essentially just spread the message far and wide. So do a little bit of reading and educate yourself, and share it with the people that you love. Share it on your social media and become a voice for this cause. So there's so much that you can do. I mean, and it's not just on your shoulders. I mean, it's all of us taking these little steps to come together, and together we'll climb this mountain, essentially. It's not just one person sitting there thinking, what on earth am I going to do? I mean, it's all of us coming together. It's not something that anyone can achieve alone, no matter their role or their standing or their social media following. So everyone is just as important in making this difference as the others. You can go for a walk on your local beach and just take a plastic bag, not a plastic bag, maybe just take a bag and collect some of the rubbish. I mean, it's endless what you can do. And I think it's really important for people to know that every little bit helps. And as cliche as that sounds, it's really true. I mean, you multiply our actions by millions or billions, and you have a very significant outcome.
Exactly. And kind of tying it all back into what we mentioned earlier, these are human caused problems. And so, and these problems are caused by each little person being a little careless with their plastic, the single use plastic, or their purchasing and consumerism. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's because people don't see a direct action happening when they buy something that's not single use, or they recycle or reuse. But realistically, that's a huge step to change your living habits. Even just that little bit as a consumer can have a big impact. Yeah, and each person doing that, it does so much.
Yeah, it can't be underestimated, the importance of individual actions. And again, no matter what field you're in, everyone can be a conservationist. You don't need to have a degree or a qualification to be a conservationist. You just need to take an active role, whatever that may be, in this cause. And if you're feeling a little bit disheartened at times, as it's so easy to do, just look up some good news stories. Come to my page. I try to share some positive stories too. I mean, I think Simba is a really good one. It started off not so good, but he, because of the actions of people, was able to live out the rest of his days in peace. And sometimes you just need a reminder that there is a lot of good out there. Just seems like the negativity can outweigh it sometimes, and you just need to be reminded that we're hopefully on the right path. I mean, just recently China banned the use or dysregulated the use of pangolin scales as an medicinal use. So that's a huge step. That's an enormous step. And that can't be underestimated. So there's a lot of good coming, and we just have to continue and know that we'll get there.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. A very, very good answer. So thank you for that. I know we're running out of time because you have to go soon, right?
Yeah, probably. What's the time? Shortly. I can answer another question.
All right. Well, okay. So then here's my other follow-up question that it just popped into my head, because knowing all the different animals you've come across in your career so far, it's a question I get a lot too, and I know it's a sort of an unfair on the point. So I was just curious if you have a favorite species that you like, just has your heart. What's your if you have one? What is your favorite species?
I think orangutans. Even though I haven't worked with them directly yet. I was supposed to go at the end of last year, and then that didn't eventuate, and then again the start of this year, and again COVID. But I think, or maybe great apes in general, because I'm really humbled when I work with them, and you can appreciate our similarities. I think they're such a great example, or that it's very hard to deny our shared ancestry, and just the fact that they're sentient. When you look at them, there's a thinking, feeling being looking back at you, and you can't deny that. And for anyone who's feeling a lack of connection to the natural world, it just takes a matter of looking at a great ape, or having a close experience with a great ape, as I've been fortunate to be able to do. You feel a huge sense of responsibility to protect their environment, because we're not the only beings to share this earth. It doesn't belong to us, even though we maybe very mistakenly have believed so in the past.
Right.
We share it with all these amazing species on which we depend as well. So their survival depends on us, but just the other way around, our survival does depend on their survival, because the ecosystem is very intertwined. And I think working with great apes and particularly orangutans, I find them just spectacular, and their likeness to us is just humbling, and it's just something that you don't forget. And I was fortunate to be involved with the planning stages of a knee replacement, actually, on a chimpanzee, which was going to be the first knee replacement in the world on a chimp. And when you just look at them and you just learn about their troop dynamics and you see their similarities, and you're just there with them, it's just undeniable that you have a responsibility to look after these incredible species as much as you do to look after the stick insect, even though it's maybe not as glamorous. But it's just a great exemplar species, I suppose, these great apes, and it's undeniable, our connection with them. So I think that's a really great thing. And people who are looking to get involved in conservation, or maybe someone that you're hoping to inspire, you tell them some stories about great apes and show them some images, and if you can, take them to see them, and that is a really powerful experience for them, I found.
I agree, and that's a great answer too. I love that idea of just feel, well, yeah, you're it's like I was kind of rolling in my head, it's like, okay, well, the animals I work with, I kind of feel a connection to, looking in the eyes. But yeah, you know, it's that prime, that when we are in the space of other apes, I agree that you get the sense of that you are not just with another animal, that you are communing with family, extended family. But I mean, there's that connection there, and looking in the eyes and having that opportunity to have that kind of proximity is something special. So yeah, I like that.
Really special. So I use them a lot in examples, because for people that I'm maybe trying to convince, or not convince, but explain why this is so important and so special, the natural world, it's really hard to not form an engagement with a great ape. So that's a really great place to start from.
Well, you had mentioned, switching gears, so we're going to have to wrap up, I know, because we're both pressed for time. But switching gears really quick, you mentioned a little bit back that you post things on your website too. There's information on your website. Please share with everybody, where can they find you, aside from following you here on Instagram, which if they are not doing yet, they should stop this video, go do it, and come finish this video. Where else do you put out content? Where else can people find you?
So yeah, I created a website because I find a lot of people want to get involved with conservation and not quite sure how to do it. And I've been fortunate to spend time with a lot of amazing organizations. So I put together this website to share my stories, but to predominantly share how people can get involved themselves and take action themselves. So it's just jungledoctor.org. The Get Involved page is the one that you want. So a lot of them are for people in the veterinary field, but a lot of them also are for people just wanting to have an insight into the world of conservation and maybe make a contribution, maybe engage in this ecotourism. It's a great place to just have a scroll through and see some of the amazing initiatives going on around the world, and maybe find one that fits with you and just dip your toe in the water and see if you fall in love with it the way I have. So that's what I've put together, and hopefully everyone can take something from it.
And one more time, what was the site?
jungledoctor.org, and then
okay.
the Get Involved page will be what you're looking for.
Perfect. And is there anywhere else on social media you're doing things, or just pretty much here on Instagram?
I dip my toe in TikTok, and what's it called, TikTok, but I really don't know what I'm doing, so it's Instagram. I can't keep up with all the new things these days. I'm just way too old, so just Instagram, you'll find me.
I find too, it's one more extra thing I try to fit into my day, and it's like, oh man, I want to try and master this, but I got to think about this, so.
Yeah, so just Instagram is good, and I do my best to get back to everyone, so it might take me a little bit of time, but yeah, I love hearing from people, so please feel free to reach out if you'd like to have a chat. And yeah, thank you so very much for inviting me on here. I'm just honored to talk to you. It's been following you for ages, so big fan of your work. And
oh, thank you.
Yeah, So happy to be
Well,
here.
and it's completely mutual. I appreciate you taking the time, and I know we had to kind of kick around different times and dates to make this work, and I really appreciate it because the work you do. I mean, I have the luxury of flying out to locations and then and observing and filming and talking with people who do your work, and they're bringing their stories back. So it's great when the people who are actually doing the work get a chance to share their stories and their voice. So I appreciate not only what you do with your life and the impact you're having, but then taking the time today to share some of this. So I really appreciate it. I hope you stay healthy. Looking forward to your book coming out, and hopefully things clear up and you can get traveling again and doing the work that you love.
Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you. And the absolute same to you. And I really hope our paths can cross in person one day in the not too distant future.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
Great.
All right. Well, you take care.
You too. And I'll talk to you again soon, no doubt.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a treat. Oh my gosh. Her work, seriously, if you aren't following her Instagram right now, you got to go do that. As always, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I will save this to Instagram TV. It usually takes about an hour or two for it to pop up there, and then it will also show up as a post then on my Instagram account. And then eventually I'll get it over onto YouTube as well, so it could be shared there too. I really appreciate everyone joining us today and having a chance to listen to her share her stories and what she does. And hopefully, if you're one of my followers that didn't know about her, you've now got a great new account to follow. Like I mentioned at the top of the other one that stopped for some reason. Prior to this one, this might be my last one this week because we're heading into opening the San Diego Zoo, which means my schedule and life is going to change. If I can get a couple more, I will, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. Don't worry, though. Thursday nights with Jordan, they're going to keep going because it was a nighttime thing. I believe this week it'll be on my account at 8 o'clock tonight, not 7 o'clock, but I'll post some stories, a heads up about that. So, again, thanks, everyone, for joining us. Stay healthy out there. I know we're kind of in this weird flux. It seemed like it was kind of going away, but now it might be coming back. And just be careful, take precautions, wash your hands, take care of yourself, drink some water, get some exercise, get some sleep, all the things that your parents or your mom or someone who loves you would say to you, because dang it, you got to take care of yourself, all right? Otherwise, we can't take care of the things that we want to do. Have a good one, everybody.